Hey friends, welcome back to the 1211 podcast, where we believe that your story has power. Based on Revelation 12:11, we know that they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. That's what this podcast is all about: overcoming, healing, and freedom through the transforming love of Jesus and the courage to share our stories. I'm Jennifer, and I'm here with my co-host, Tabitha.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. This episode is a powerful one. We're sitting down with our friend, Tammy Dickenson, who has an incredible story of how God met her in the middle of deep brokenness and pain and whispered the words she had strived her whole life to hear. Tammy, I love you. Tammy's journey from striving and shame to abiding and healing will encourage you, challenge you, and remind you that God is close to the brokenhearted and He never stops pursuing us.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Before we dive into the deep stuff of your story, we're going to have a little fun with our rapid fire round. Now, most people, we thought that was going to be like an easy way to ease into things, but most of our guests say that's the most stressful part to them.
I'm ready.
So, all right, good. Just 10 questions. First thing that comes to mind.
10.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? All right, here we go.
What is your go-to coffee or tea order?
Just a regular coffee with extra sugar and cream.
If you could visit anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Israel.
That's on my list, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to do that. I have a long list.
I would like to go
Yeah,
there.
that would be great. Or my daughter has this possibility of an opportunity in the next school year at college to be in a class and then to go to all the places Paul was.
Oh,
So I'm like, I'm
neat.
praying this works out for her because I think it'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. Can she take guests?
I don't think so. Maybe I could volunteer.
Take a bomb.
What's one song that always lifts your mood?
Goodness of God.
That's the one. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
I used to be a night owl, but I am now more of a morning person.
Yeah.
Not early,
Right.
but I do get up about 6:30.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that time in the morning to myself.
Yeah. It's nice when you get to a season in life, I think, where the mornings can be like a little bit slower and not so rushed. And
Right.
yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
As we're older.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite season of the year?
My favorite season of the year is a tie between spring and fall. I love both of those, and we don't get much of either of those, especially spring.
I know. I feel like we jump from winter to summer pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a food that you absolutely say, no, I will never eat that you refuse to eat?
Wow. That I would refuse to eat. I can't think of one that I just. Oh, I can think of one that Michael eats. This is so gross. Like pickled eggs.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to eat those. Or worse than that, pickled pig's feet.
No, I'm not.
No, that no.
No, that is not okay.
No, that's not normal. I'm not gonna eat those.
Yeah, I have one. I like a lot of things. There are a few things. No, there's no way I would eat it. No way. I mean, I guess if I'm starving,
Let's pickle those
who
things.
thinks about like, if you just pickle it, it makes it okay. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
A gross person came up with that.
That's right.
What's something that always makes you laugh?
Or someone. It could be someone too.
That always makes me laugh, or someone. Oh gosh, I have people in my life that make me laugh. Probably my kids and my hubby. I love to laugh.
Yeah.
And my friends, I just love to laugh. Laughter is so good.
It's so good.
I spent a lot of years not laughing much, and now, I love to laugh.
Laughter is good. Like there's not much better for your soul than to have spent time with friends that you walk away and your eye makeup's gone because you've laughed so
You
hard.
laugh so hard,
And it's like that's
Totally
the
take it.
best. It's like medicine for your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a book of the Bible right now that you'd say that's kind of where I'm living, like your favorite book of the Bible right now? Because for me, that changes through different seasons.
It changes, but I love Luke, but I love Ephesians. I keep coming back to Ephesians.
I just read through Ephesians a couple of weeks ago, and it's just fresh.
Oh, it's good. And then I love John. I love the Abide chapters, just about vine and branches. I teach it and talk about it, but it just keeps nourishing.
So good.
So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What I love about the Word of God is like you can just keep revisiting those same passages. It becomes alive and active, as we're told. Like it meets you where you are today. There's always a fresh message. You don't have to live on yesterday's word, right? It's fresh for today.
Yes.
So when you can catch that in your walk too, I think like just go to the Word with that expectancy. It changes everything.
Yes.
Yeah, so good. Dogs, cats, or neither?
Oh, I hate to say this out loud. Probably neither, but we have a dog and we had a cat, but she recently went on a journey.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. I like animals, but I'm not a crazy animal lover.
Right.
I don't dislike them.
Sure.
Let me make sure I say that. I don't dislike them.
Right. Right. You like them when there's someone else's.
I like them, and I like mine.
Yeah.
I like her.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What is your favorite way to spend a Saturday?
Favorite way to spend a Saturday? Really just being, I'm so busy just being at home, being with Michael, being with my kids if I can be, working in the yard, not putting makeup on, sleeping in, having an extra cup of coffee, just really just being at the house. We have a great house that we love, and I say sometimes, this is a great house and we don't spend enough time here. So we're really trying to be intentional about that.
Yeah, that's great. That's
I
good.
love that. All right. Thank you for playing along with us. Now that we know you a little bit better, it's time to hear your story. Tammy, you shared with Jennifer and me that for a long time, your life was marked by striving, trying to be good enough, and helping others, even while you were carrying your own hidden pain. Can you take us back to what life looked like before God met you in that personal way?
Well, I grew up in the church. My dad was a preacher, but he also had a full-time job, so he preached anytime there was availability and still does that to this day. So I knew God. I knew of him. I knew him, but I didn't really know about, like, his grace and his mercy and the Holy Spirit, and I didn't know him. I just knew him in my thinking. And it was a very performance-based relationship, not on his part, but mine.
Yeah.
Trying and striving and trying to do the right thing. And ultimately, always afraid I was going to lose it. My relationship with him. If I weren't good enough, smart enough, whatever the enough is.
Yeah.
And so that will wear a girl out. All that trying and striving. And I went on and I got my degree, and so then it was, I'd line up people and people would come to see me. I love being a counselor. I feel like God's called me to it, and so I could stay so busy because there's always something good to do.
Yeah.
And so where that ended up leaving me was worn out and tired and overwhelmed, and I didn't understand the relationship with Christ to really cry out. I guess I would cry out, but I didn't understand how to pray. I didn't understand his love for me. And I've been married for 37 years next week. And we had a really toxic, unhealthy relationship. Two good people, but he came from hard things. I came from hard things, and together we had no idea how to love each other well. He was verbally abusive, and I was codependent, and it was not good.
Dangerous.
And very, very dangerous. And I got so tired and overwhelmed and desperate and hopeless, and would just beg God, please get me out of this marriage. Please change this man. Right? Because if you would just change this man.
Everything would be great.
Yeah. Talk about it. I mean, from me saying it, I gave him like 13 devotions. And that is not a joke. It was 13 because if God could change him, I could feel more loved.
Right.
He could love me well, love me better. He couldn't have done that. I was so guarded up from my pain with him and pain in the past. And so I got to an incredibly desperate place on my knees, but and of course, I was doing good things. I wasn't about to tell anybody because I was so ashamed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was wondering, when you talk about like you were striving and you were very performance based in kind of your understanding of God, would you have said that kind of defined how you were in all your relationships, like even as a child? Because I have a similar story, and I would say, I just recently was trying to unpack a little bit that myself to figure out what's that rooted in, like when did that start, and how does that play out? And I don't ever remember not being that way. Honestly, when I start trying to trace it back to where did it start, it's like from my earliest, even early childhood, I remember, and I don't think that was something my parents put on me. So it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And so did that impact your other relationships? And
I think it impacted every one of my relationships. I mean, as a kid, I grew up in a pretty legalistic church, and I don't want to blame them or my mom and dad, or it's everything. I just tried to do a good job and be nice, be kind, be good enough until I wasn't good anymore. Because you'll crash.
Absolutely.
It's the opposite of the work of the cross.
Right.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I learned that a lot in church, and I always felt like I didn't measure up and it wasn't enough, and I would always be afraid. I guess I was always afraid that people that I loved were going to leave me if I didn't do the right thing, if I didn't show up in the way that their idea of what good looked like.
Right.
So yes.
Wow. So you also shared with us that kind of was your journey, and then you got to a place where you had a specific encounter with God, sitting in your own counseling chair where you were counseling someone else, but as you sat there, you had a specific encounter with God. I want you to unpack that moment and how that unfolded, and why that was such a turning point for you.
Well, God had been, God is so persistent in his love. I love the idea in Scripture where he leaves the 99 that are standing with him, maybe the righteous ones, and he's looking for the lost one. And he had been running after me with glimpses. I would see his hand in something. There would be favor in something, and I was like, that's nothing but God. We were talking a little bit about that earlier. And, I mean, I did counseling for a long time, and as counselors, we just don't want anybody to hurt, and we hurt, and so we want to help everybody feel better and get better, and I kept finding myself in churches working, and it was odd, and God called me to churches, and so I'm there, and I'm worn out, and I'm tired, and I'm so stressed out, and I remember so distinctly, I can see almost not what I'm wearing, but my chair where I'm sitting. And I am having a moment, and I'm like, God, what? Because I didn't know what was wrong. How could I was doing the best I could, right? I was doing good things. I had great kids who were watching Michael and I not be good together, and they were living in that, but I didn't know what to do. It's his love that beckons us, right? To trust him.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, and it's like he dropped into my spirit. I love the message and what you're doing, but Tammy, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. I'm like, you talking to me, God? You are speaking to me.
And I love you regardless if you were doing that or not. I think is where it's.
Yes, I love you. He's always been that way. Tammy, I love that you love people. But more importantly, I want you to know I love you. Because when you love on all these people through your own strength, it wears you down. But when you love out of obedience in places he calls you because you know you're loved and it flows through you, it's night and day. So that moment, and then he would bring me verses, and I would be in a session, and he would just give me words for people. And I'm like, the king of the world is like wanting to hang out with me. Like he loves me. And so that began this journey of I would stand in my shower, and I would cry, and I would say, God, please teach me how to let you love me. Because I was so guarded up with my marriage and other things I'd been through that I would have pushed him back, but he knew exactly how to start speaking to me.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I think that's a common struggle. I hear it where people are like, I have a hard time letting people love me, and I think it's not that we just have a hard time letting people love us, we have a hard time letting God love us as well. And especially when it goes back to the story you told of performance, striving, checklist kind of faith, right? We kind of think that's how we're loved, is based on what we do.
Right.
I've shared on this podcast before, but I'll share it again because I think it's important for us to recognize as adults who pour into the lives of children. As the children's pastor, one of the things I try to say on a regular basis to the kids that I serve is there's nothing you can do to make him love you more, and there's nothing that you can do to make him love you less. He loves you regardless.
Yes.
You don't have to earn that. He loves you.
Well,
and it's just such a simple message.
Oh,
it's I want them to hear it over and over and over and over.
To hear that is everything. It reminds me what you said. There's a message. It's called The Inheritance. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's a guy, Graham Cook, who's kind of a wild guy, but that message is kind of a word from God, and it says that he's talking about God speaking to us, and he says, I love you because 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 that is who I am.
Yes,
and I won't love you better if you do better.
Right.
In fact,
doesn't love you better than someone else who isn't.
No, if you're not doing anything toward me, I'm still going to love you 100%. I heard that years ago, and I thought, I just wept.
Yes.
It's like, can this be true?
Yeah.
It's a love your heart and your head can hardly fathom.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Shame and trauma are heavy weights to carry. What did it look like for God to begin stripping that away in your life? And were there moments when it was especially hard to let go of the striving because you had done it for so long?
Yeah, there were lots of moments. And shame is, I say it all day, it'll eat your lunch. It will wreck you. And every woman I know struggles with it. Guilt is when you do something wrong.
Right.
And shame is you're bad.
Yeah.
You're not enough. Your humanness is not enough. And you can't shake that.
Right.
And the enemy uses it more than anything.
Yeah. And it is not from God. That's what I keep saying.
It's not from God.
Right? It's not from God.
It's not like other emotions.
Right. That shame is not from God.
And when you recognize, Melanie Beatty in Language of Letting Go says, if it's dark and daunting and makes you feel bad about yourself, it's shame. And when you can start recognizing it and calling it out, then literally you can demolish it.
Yeah.
You can demolish it in your life because it is after your call, your heart, your confidence.
Yes.
Hope I can remember the question.
Yeah, I think it was, what did God, I was thinking, what did that, like the process of, you've used the word stripping, and I know that's near and dear to your heart, but what did that look like for you, that God began to strip away the shame, the guilt, all the things that you were trying to be that you didn't have to be in?
Well, it really came in 2018 when I was sitting in church. I was at World Outreach, and I was on lunch break, and I was doing counseling alongside of them, and God said, pick up your pencil, and he just downloaded this blueprint for Stripped Away. 7 principles. I wrote them down. Of course, it was the blueprint. They were shifted and changed. And I thought, and then he said, I want you to share this first with men. It's like, what in the world? and so I started this journey of writing Stripped Away. I was going to call it U-Turn, but I decided not to call it that because God used a beautiful desk in my life to give me that name, Stripped Away. Michael and I were out yard sailing one day, and I was writing this book because I'm fine, but God gave me a book to write, and I was writing it. And I'd seen this beautiful desk in my mind, and like I saw it in a vision, like it was older, and I just saw myself writing on it. And I look here and I look there, and couldn't find it. And Michael and I went to yard sailing, and we saw a sign that said yard sale pointing down the street. And we turned to go down the street, and we got to the end of the street, and there was no yard sale. But at the end of the driveway was my desk.
Oh.
And it sat there, and it had a sign on the desk, and it said for free.
Wow.
And it was my desk.
Oh.
And Michael was like, tell me it's not, because it's really big. But it was. And so, long story short, I began to write Stripped Away, and it was writing me.
Yeah.
I said, this is going to change lives. It was all my counseling experience, but it was my story of brokenness and with people in my life. And as I was writing it and I started to share it, I was falling to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
As I was telling people, let's look at your trauma and look at different things, I started to realize in these moments in teaching others, ended up teaching and talking about trauma and going offline, and people coming and praying over me, because I did not even realize that I had post-traumatic stress disorder from the abuse in our marriage and the way. And so through that book,
Awesome.
isn't that wild?
It's beautiful, and it's such a beautiful reminder of just how he, like you said earlier, the goodness of God.
Oh,
Just like when you start tracing his fingerprints in your life of just something as small as a desk at the end of the driveway,
yeah.
that he cares so much about you that he put the desk at the end of the
At the
driveway.
end of the driveway. And I took it back to the garage, and I was wiping it off because it was so beautiful, but it had gunk on it, and it had some dried paint. And I get my Murphy's oil soap and my rag, and in the garage, and I'm just working on it while worship is playing. And I just start weeping, and God's like, this is you. And I'm stripping it all away.
Yeah.
And then I was like, there's that thing I'm writing.
Yeah. It's all coming together.
And it began to be, and he just started, and Michael and I were on the floor. My Max would come home sometimes, and we're writing Stripped Away, and God is stripping us away. We're on the floor, and we're weeping, and Max comes in, he's like, whoop, getting a sandwich, and goes out, and he's heard so many things in the midst of prayers and hard things, but I'm so thankful he did.
Yeah.
But so that process, God took me on the journey of writing that book. He said to Michael, why am I writing this book? What am I going to do with it? Because, I got to do something with it.
Right.
So people say, when I play my guitar, are you very good at it? I'm like, who cares?
Right.
It brings joy to my heart when I strum it.
Yeah.
So Michael said, Tammy, I don't know what you're going to do with it. God told you to write it, now write it.
Write it. Yeah.
And it has become an instrument of my healing. And as that's happened, I get to share it.
Yeah. And we're such an outcomes-based society. We're such a product-based, like what's the end result going to be? We're about results and outcomes. And I think that it's a good reminder that often it's not the result, it's not the outcome, it's the process, it's the journey through to get to that place that is the outcome, right? And I think just reminding families and parents, I would say there's things in my life that I wish I would have tried, but I didn't because I feared I wouldn't be good enough at it. Right. And I mean, you just said that word, like, are you good enough at no, it brings you joy. And that's where, like, we need to release ourselves and our child, the child in us that gets to experience things. Just try it. It doesn't matter if you're good at it. Try it.
Well, I remember distinctly when I started, did my first 12-week group with men Stripped Away, I was scared to death. Walking in there with 12 men, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And a friend of mine said, John Maxwell says, she told me, she said, just jump and find your wings on the way down. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And in that process, God just kept stripping away everything from me. I began to lose my fear of failure. I have a fear of failure because the fear of failure keeps you from jumping into where God wants you to go. And it's like
from our
shackles have come off of me. It's like, what if I fall down? Who cares? I get back up. What if I don't fall down? What if I fly? It's like, so I just, it was.
And releasing ourselves from that weight too of, if you're doing what he's called you to do, can you really fail?
Yeah.
Can you? I mean, it may look like failure to someone else, but the obedience
Yeah.
is at the heart of it. It's
Right.
not whether you get the outcome or the result. And I think it's that, I've had to release myself at times in my life to say, you're not that big, Jennifer.
Yeah.
You're not that big, So it may not turn out the way you thought, but I think God can use it in spite of you. You're not right to stand in the way of what He wants to do.
Well, and what you said a few minutes ago is so meaningful when you think about performance, because always, and it's the way our world lives, we're always thinking about the outcome. Is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be marketable? Will it get likes? Is it all of these things that are just that we in the performance and the trying and striving is not just an idea that I had. It is a shield that I've used.
Yeah.
It's a trauma shield that I've used to try to cover my feelings of worthlessness.
Yeah.
And so I have to stay busy because my body would not even allow me to be still and to abide and to be close. Because if I was not moving and productive, I would sink. So now just to be able, I'm sitting here with you guys and just to be present, like this is the moment right here. And then God can do with it what He decides to do. We just want to say yes because He asked us to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So good. All right. So when you were just talking, you were talking about the present, like being in the present, living in the present, that you couldn't even do that. That was hard for you because the striving, I identify with that. But in even getting ready for this, you shared some words about learning to abide in His presence one day at a time was powerful for you. So what does that look like for you? Because you've mentioned that was a part of your journey from the striving, the being, the performing, to being able to rest in His presence, abide in His presence, and not perform for love, but to simply receive the love. So what does that look like?
Well, kind of like in the shower begging Him, show me how to let you love me. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. I was at a friend's house and I share this often, and I sat down for like a 4-minute Tony Evans video, and he talks about the cup of tea, right? He gets he says, every day I like a cup of tea, and he said, I get my hot water, and he said, somebody gets a tea, you see people with a tea bag, and they dunk it, and they dunk it, and they dunk it, and then they swirl it around their spoon, and they smush it against the side. He said, they do all these things, and they're worn out before they have a cup of tea. And he said, this is what I do, and I do this all the time in demonstration. He said, I take my hot cup of water, and I drop the tea bag in, and I let it abide. And that moment, I was like, whatever that is, I don't have any of it. Right. And I want that so desperately. And through the journey of writing Stripped Away and writing about abide in that chapter, and I wrote a chapter on abide. Everything else was pretty revelatory and it was experiential, but I knew that abide was something I was pursuing, and I had no idea what it looked like. And I was wondering why did I not know that? Why did I not understand intimacy? And hearing Priscilla Shire say that, God is the vine keeper, Jesus is the vine, and we're the branches. And she says, what does a branch do? What does a branch do? And when we saw her at an event, I was like, we don't know. I bear fruit. I don't. And she said, no, a branch does absolutely nothing. It just stays connected to Jesus. And I'm like, ow, I want that. Because I knew the other things weren't working. And so in that process of writing and trying to teach about abide, and some dear people who came through my group early on saying, whoa. One of my friends was like, whoa, what is this abiding you're talking about? Because I can't even make my brain stop racing for 2 minutes. And then she was like, I'm so sorry I said that in front of everybody. And it's like, no, it's a great question. And we went back, she and I'm so thankful. She and I went back, and 2 days later, we rewrote that whole chapter, because what I realized is the reason I couldn't abide is because of my trauma. I was too guarded up. Trauma says run. It keeps you disconnected from head and heart. It keeps you from being present. You're not going to a soldier on a battlefield going, hey, do you want to talk? Do you want to, let me show you this flower? No, I was living in hypervigilance and always people-pleasing and always performing. And so not realizing that was my body's way, I couldn't abide. And so this process, God began to give me this idea of, I'm going to strip you away so that you're going to be able to abide and be intimate in my love. And so that was just, I am living now in the present. I mean, I'm on my front porch for 2.5 hours. I'm like, oh God, I gotta go take a shower. I'm gonna be late for work.
Yeah.
I was never able to be still with him because when I was, my body couldn't do it. Trauma causes brain damage. Trauma causes us to be disconnected. It causes us to see danger when there's no danger because we've been hurt and people we love have hurt us.
Sure. Yeah.
So I've done a lot of trauma work. And this process of helping get free from the trauma that I didn't even know was in me. You know, when you do something for so long,
Sounds normal.
my husband says, like carrying a backpack with like cinder blocks in it.
Yeah.
And I got really good at carrying it.
Yeah.
And then somebody went, hey, let me take that out.
Yeah.
And those were the shields and the walls and the things that, thank God, God gave us a defense mechanism. I always say to people, whatever you did to survive, don't beat yourself up. Because guess what? You're here.
Right.
And then as you are able to lay those things down, when you get safe, you start to get safe emotionally and with people and physically. It's amazing how you can begin to draw close to him, and he holds his hands out for those survival things.
Yeah, you don't need those anymore.
No. And you start to fall in love with him and yourself and the people around you, and you start to know what safe feels like. And sometimes that means you have to let go of things that you wish you could keep, but people, places, things.
Right. Yeah.
You're now walking with others on their journey from brokenness to wholeness, from hurting to healed. How has your own story changed the way you show up and love others and their stories?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. It makes me want to cry. You know, one of the things that I say, and God has given me this verbiage, is you can't give what you don't got. Another is your deepest wound is your greatest calling. And what a sacred honor to be with people who are willing to be vulnerable and open and share their hearts. I was so guarded, I didn't know how to do that with people. And so to be able to share, and let's just, in testifying, right? The tears and the pain and the hurt and the hopelessness and the regret. As you tell your story, shame leaves. It's the real truth, right? Telling the real truth. And as you tell your story about what you've lived through, His glory is all around. And so as I think it's, I can't remember his name, the guy that wrote Purpose Driven Life. Rick Warren says, your story is a key to unlock somebody else's prison. And the more you tell your story, the more you fall in love with Jesus, because you realize, you did this for me. How can I not? I'm compelled to share my story and what God has done for me. He will do for her. He will do for him. What God has done for you, He will do for them. If you're willing. Because it's not about it's about the details and the connection with people, but it's really about the goodness of what He did. He never gave up. I gave up. But He never gave up. And so, and I have such a heart to know that you can love Jesus with your whole heart, but you can also, and you can be very emotionally unhealthy. God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, they're healthy. Healthy. And so it's a skill set to be healthy. I'm learning it. And I'm teaching other people to learn it, and they're learning, and I'm learning more. So it's this beautiful journey of Nobody's called to do anything by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
To walk with other people in the body of Christ. And when you get set free, whoo, I get set free.
Yeah. And doesn't the enemy like to try to make us do it by ourselves?
Oh.
He tries to isolate us
Isolate.
because we were made
Mhm.
for relationship, and that is the place at which he attacks us
Mhm.
and tries to drive us into places of isolation and shame and guilt and close ourselves off to others. He tries to create barriers and obstacles between us because it's the source of our identity. It's relationship, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you were able to just give a word of encouragement today to someone who finds themselves in a place where they feel unseen or unloved, maybe they feel stuck in performance or stuck in overwhelming shame, what would you say to them? And I'd love for you to kind of give us some next steps, because if someone today says, I identify with so much of what she's saying and this is me and I don't know what to do about it now, it's great for me to know it's me, but like, what's my next step? Practical steps of things that you think, because you talked about that you're learning to be healthy. And that's one of the things the Lord spoke to me back in the beginning of this year when I was thinking about what this year was going to look like for me. You really kind of started showing me that holiness is not just a spiritual experience. Holiness is body, mind, soul, and spirit.
Right on. Yes, indeed.
And so you can't really be holy as he is holy if you're only trying to be holy spiritually, but you're not holy physically, or you're not holy mentally.
So true.
And so I would love for you, in what you could in this time we have here today, give them what you think are some practical next steps. And then, what if they, maybe this is the word they've been desperate for, like, oh, there is hope out there for me. What would you say it's something they could do to kind of start pursuing this journey?
Well, I can't help but start with saying that becoming emotionally healthy, physically healthy, relationally healthy leads to being spiritually healthy. I say it so often, healthiness and holiness go hand in hand. They just do. And the trauma with both Michael and I is what wrecked us. And I am so proud to say that God, and so honored that God is radically freeing us, and I'm in love with the power of man. Our relationship, we about destroyed each other, and he is the love of my life. And so I am just, testifying that it requires all of that. Emotionally healthy, finding safe people in your life, safe people. And those are people who don't tell you what to do, don't shame you. I've had a lot of people tell me the right word, but the way they gave it to me was not in a loving, kind way. And ultimately what it did is it made me feel even more worthless. So that right word and the right spirit, but to find safe people, to understand what does it mean to be safe. I say to people sometimes, do you know what emotional safety is? And a lot of people go, no. So buy a fuzzy blanket. Get a pillow in your room. Find a space and sit. Listen to music. Go outside and look at the trees and the birds. Find that safety. Find a church that you feel loved. Loved. The greatest of these is love, right? It is love. Talk to someone. Go to counseling. Reach out.
Yeah.
Most people who reach out to me say, I've been thinking about this for years. Be an advocate that you can have a therapist and Jesus, right? Somebody said that. That's not original. But man, you can have a therapist and you can have Jesus. The two of them, a good spirit-led therapist.
Right.
And it is important to have a spirit-led therapist who is doing her own work. We don't need to... Oh my God, a word is okay, but when it is through your story, there's where the power is. That's where you live. So, just practically, it is not selfish to practice self-care. I was talking about that. It's selfish not to.
Right.
Talk about with an airplane. If those masks drop down and you're with someone younger than you or somebody frail, really anybody, whose mask do you put on first?
You're supposed to put on your own first. I just use this as a sermon illustration.
Oh, good. It's a great one. It's a great one because and most people say theirs.
Right.
Like we're being,
Well, I mean, it's our instinct to do that. In my sermon illustration, I shared my instinct as a mom when I had little ones.
Sure.
When they were saying that on the airplane, I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm going to make sure they're breathing.
Right.
And so it seems good going to the self-care thing. It seems in our mind, I think I'm doing the right thing. And the Lord's showing me like, no, you can't.
Oh,
you can. If you don't, you're
so
not praying, then you can't help.
Good. And it's such a metaphor, like put your own mask on with God.
Yeah.
Let him love you. Let him fill you to overflow. And let him know you want to know and feel good about who you are. You're God's. We walk around with low self-esteem as Christians. It's like, he wants to fill us to over. I've never met anybody who's filled with overflow through the Holy Spirit and confidence that becomes arrogant.
Right.
It's the performance part of it that makes you do that.
Yeah.
So, just put that mask on, and I'm trying to debunk the myth that self-care is selfish. I say it's not selfish. It's selfish if you don't do it, because then you can't tend to the things that God has called you to tend to. Oh, I'm just learning these things. Mm-hmm. And we still pause and go, well, I think I should put their mask on first. I'm sure that's right. But then the more you do it, the more energy and empowerment and strength you have to walk with them in those places. So and physically, I'm getting more physically. I have a good friend of mine who does a lot of physical stuff. And it's like, you know what? If you're going to be strong in the spirit, you need to be strong physically. Mm-hmm. That's why we eat well and try to do the thing most of the time. Try to do the things we need to do so that our vessel can be strong. And I'm learning, just to love me, to know me. I do a lot of little girl work. I'm in a room full of women.
What do you mean with that, with the little girl work? Okay. Because I've had several people share that that was transformative for them in their time with you. So,
as little girls, we go through hard things. And trauma is trauma. Somebody's trauma is, 9/11 is trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Feeling rejected by someone in your family is trauma. Mm-hmm. So pain is pain is pain. We tend to compare it. Mm-hmm. So as little girls, we kind of, I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and she is in her original child. She is joyful, dirty, feet in the dirt, petting her dog, just so happy. We all start there. But what happens with most of us is we go through things and we start to, and this is some of Marilyn Murray's work, and I've been able to be trained with Marilyn, and Marty Faree, shout out to them, amazing pioneer people. But we become this little girl whose face is pain, and we don't know what to do with it. And so we internalize it. And most of our parents want to do the right thing, but they can only give you what they got. And I'm this sensitive kid who feels and sees everything. And so very quickly that little girl becomes that sobbing child, and she just feels pain and has bad dreams at night, and nobody understands. Not that they're not trying to, but and then other things happen, and she just shuts down. And then she just covers, puts on that goes to school, gets that degree, gets that next degree, tries to be good enough, tries to be nice. So my grandma used to say, just be nice. And I thought, I don't know if that's the right answer.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. I'm angry and I'm hurt, and it's okay to be angry and hurt. Those are emotions. But anyway, that little girl in all of us, that original little girl gets way lost behind the pain. And so she's waiting for us to come get her. When I'm in a room full of women, I'm just looking at lots of little girls. And when I speak at different places, somebody will come up and go, I never thought about her. I'm going to go home and put my arms around her. Nobody knows that little girl's pain more than we do. And so I'm just teaching and learning. I have a picture of my little girl in my prayer closet. And I talk to her. Mm-hmm. And I tell her how beautiful she is. And I tell her how fearfully, wonderfully made she is, and how funny she is. And I'm the hero, right, that she's been looking for, every broken place. And I had heroes growing up. It's our responsibility to go back and meet that little girl. I always say to women or men, it's your grown-up self that drove you here, but it's that little boy or little girl that prompted you to come. It's like, you know what, that one that was knitted together. So, and we can find, and the wounds start in childhood.
Yeah, early
Childhood. And we can go back, work through those shields and those guards and the people-pleasing and the addiction and all the things we tried to use to survive. Get back to her pain. Open that little girl up so that she has a safe place to talk about where it hurts. And then we get back to that beautiful little girl inside. And that original little girl, that's your talents. That's your call on your life. That's your personality. And Marilyn talks so much about this, but that's the core of our healthy, balanced self. You can't be a healthy, balanced grown-up if that little girl is still locked in that pain. Oh, what a journey of my life to walk with women and men. My friend Dr. Abney years ago, and a great mentor, said, you want to find the heart of a woman or heart of a man, find the heart of that little boy and find the heart of that little girl beneath that pain.
So good.
If you could leave our listeners with one thing, what would you want to say to them?
Oh, that's hard. Could it be one A, B, C?
Yes.
Yeah. The first would be, he loves you. Jesus loves you. And even if you can't see him, he loves you. He died for you. He loves you. And he loves you in ways you can hardly even comprehend. And you can see him everywhere, in the trees and in creation. And he's always wanting to talk to you and be with you. You're enough. You're enough. You are enough. Nobody else can be who you are. I say this so often too, and I live it. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I also say a lot, don't give up. I know you want to. My favorite verse ever is and maybe can I say my favorite verse ever?
Yeah.
Is Zechariah 9 verse 12, and it says, all you prisoners of hope, I declare to you today double the blessing. I carried that on my screensaver for 5 years because no word from anybody else is going to set me free.
Right.
Lots of good things in this world, but he is the only thing, his love. So that prisoners of hope means, I've read about it so many times, like you want to give up hope. Like you're hopeless, but because of him, you hold on to a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you are so incredibly loved, and ask him to show you his love.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
And if our listeners want to connect with you, they hear what you're saying, and maybe they're local to us, and they're like, I need help. Like what she said is, I've been thinking about it. It's time. I need to do this. What would be some of the ways that they could connect with you for deeper work? Because I do believe someone's gonna hear it and go, it's time.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. I know so.
Yeah.
I have, I'm all over. I have an office in Shelbyville, and I have an office in Murfreesboro. I do a little bit of individual counseling. Not a lot of it, but I do. But I do stripped away weekend intensives, and for men and for women, and then I do couples intensives. Michael and I to get together. Weekends that are really retreats, more therapeutic teaching and more ministry. And you can reach me at strippedaway.org. Also have a podcast, which I invite just people that have ministered to my heart and have just walked walks that inspire me, sort of like what you guys do. And it's just the Stripped Away podcast. So I would love for you to reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help you and give you an encouraging word. If I can, I'll help you find somebody who can.
Sure. That's great.
Tammy, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your journey, and the healing work God is continuing to do in and through you. Your story reminds us all that God doesn't wait until we are fixed to meet us. He steps right into the middle of our pain with his love.
And to our listeners, this is why we do the 1211 podcast, because we believe that as God says in his word, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Your story matters. Your pain is not wasted, and there's always hope on the other side of surrender.
If this episode encourages you, share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story of healing and transformation.
We'll see you next time on the 1211 podcast when we sit down with a Nazarene missionary who's serving in Sofia, Bulgaria, whose story is marked by courage, surrender, and the quiet strength that only comes from walking closely with Jesus. From growing up in a home of deep faith to saying yes to a life of global missions, Katie shares what it's looked like to follow God through every season, including the lonely ones. In this episode, she opens up about the highs and lows of cross-cultural ministry, the challenge of parenting far from extended family, and the grief of personal heartbreak, like the pain of watching her parents' marriage fall apart as a young adult. It's a tender, honest conversation that will leave you encouraged to trust God more deeply, even when the path ahead feels uncertain.
Make sure you join us. Until then, keep telling your story. Someone needs to hear it.
Blessings, friends.